out, the Kansas City Chiefs enter this season under rare circumstances. The pillars of their dynasty still stand firm, yet the atmosphere surrounding the roster feels unsettled. A franchise once synonymous with explosive fireworks and offensive certainty now wrestles with questions of identity and balance as shifts in personnel and timing force the organization to adapt on the fly. The offense, once the league's most terrifying weapon, has begun to show subtle fractures in recent years. Production has dipped, constant roster shuffling has disrupted continuity, and even before the first kickoff, critical contributors are absent. Depth exists, but whether that depth translates into reliability under the lights remains unproven. For the front office, the coaching staff, and Patrick Mahomes himself, the margin for error has never been slimmer. Every decision, whether a roster adjustment, trade opportunity, or injury report, now carries magnified significance, not only for this season, but for the long-term trajectory of the franchise. When the Chiefs elected to carry 8 receivers on their 53-man roster through cut-down day, it was no casual gamble. The message was clear: protect the offensive core during the opening stretch, especially with Rashee Rice sidelined. Beneath that pragmatic move, however, lies a strategic undercurrent that may not fully surface until midseason. Rice's 6-game suspension shrinks the active receiver count from 8 to 7 once he's placed on the exempt list. That still gives Mahomes more than enough weaponry to keep the offense afloat, even without his most trusted target. But the real intrigue begins when Rice returns. His presence will inevitably elevate production starting in week 7, but it will also trigger a logjam in an already crowded receiver room. Of course, the NFL rarely allows projections to unfold cleanly. Injuries can thin depth in an instant. A younger talent like Jason Brownlee, Tyquan Thornton, or Nico Remigio could flash and demand a bigger role. Still, the decision to stockpile 8 wideouts provides both flexibility and leverage. Consider the timing. The NFL trade deadline falls on November 4th, just weeks after Rice's reinstatement on October 17th. That window coincides perfectly with the moment teams decide whether to chase contention or pivot toward the future. If Kansas City concludes it has more receivers than it can realistically feature, one could easily be flipped into draft capital. The Chiefs are unlikely to carry 8 receivers indefinitely, but transforming surplus depth into picks while helping another franchise patch a hole would be savvy roster management. This dynamic adds another layer of intrigue to Kansas City's blueprint. Navigating the early weeks without Rice may prove challenging, but surviving with surplus depth could give the Chiefs a chance to profit later, strengthening the future without weakening the present. Yet, that leads to the broader concern: the offense's recent dip in production and what it means for Patrick Mahomes. While receiver depth creates options, the larger issue is the overall offensive output. Even with Mahomes commanding the huddle, Kansas City's scoring has slid noticeably over the past 2 seasons. Once averaging nearly 500 points per year during Mahomes' first 5 seasons as a starter, the Chiefs now hover closer to 378. The math is simple yet alarming: over 100 points lost annually, roughly a touchdown per game. No one questions Mahomes' brilliance or his unrivaled ability in clutch moments. But the numbers reveal a harsher reality. Constant turnover among offensive personnel has quietly eroded continuity. With new targets, rotating role players, and shifting schemes, the consistency that once made Kansas City unstoppable has started to waver.
The shifting roster pieces each season have gradually eroded the cohesion and rhythm that once made the Chiefs feel untouchable. Fantasy football managers have noticed the difference, but in the standings, Kansas City has largely concealed the slippage. Steve Spagnuolo's defense has provided an anchor, and Mahomes, even in a more restrained role, still conjures highlight reel brilliance whenever it's demanded. Yet the sting of that Super Bowl defeat against Philadelphia forced deep off-season reflection. Mahomes himself has openly declared his desire to push the ball downfield with more daring. The coaching staff has echoed that call. A revival of explosiveness is imperative. Rice's absence complicates the mission early, but the directive remains clear. Kansas City refuses to rely solely on safe plays and defensive grit. The pressing challenge is reigniting the offensive, spark to its former heights. And as the offense seeks to rediscover its firepower, injuries at wide receiver have already introduced additional turbulence. Beyond Rice's suspension, the Chiefs confirmed that rookie wideout Jalen Royals is unlikely to suit up for the opener in Brazil against the Chargers. Andy Reid revealed that Royals is still rehabilitating a knee injury, sidelining him at least through Week 1 should he remain unavailable. Kansas City will turn to Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton, Nico Remigio, and Jason Brownlee to shoulder the receiving load. That course is competent, but Royals' absence is still a major letdown. The fourth-round rookie out of Georgia, clocked at 4:42 in the 40-yard dash, boasts electrifying speed and legitimate game-breaking capability. His path ran through Georgia Military College before he raised his academic profile and transferred to Utah State, where he emerged as a lethal deep threat. His 2023 campaign included 7 touchdowns of 50-plus yards, showcasing his vertical menace. Injuries dimmed parts of that season, but scouts remain bullish on his ceiling. ESPN's Matt Miller even proclaimed during draft coverage, "Mahomes is going to love this guy." For now, however, that chemistry is on pause until Royals is fully healthy. But it isn't just the receiving core under scrutiny. The running back depth is also in the spotlight. Historically, Kansas City has not leaned heavily on its backfield during the Mahomes era, instead constructing an aerial juggernaut. Yet Philadelphia's title push, powered in part by Saquon Barkley's dominance, has nudged Chiefs brass to reconsider the balance. The backfield currently mirrors last season's rotation. Isaiah Pacheco remains the featured hammer, Kareem Hunt provides veteran relief, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire has rejoined the fold. The Chiefs also signed Elijah Mitchell in free agency, though his recent output has been curtailed by injuries. He managed just 7 appearances in 2024, raising durability concerns. With Rice out for 6 contests, the Chiefs could need a heavier ground game early, making trustworthy depth behind Pacheco essential. That possibility has fueled speculation that Kansas City may scour the market. ESPN's Dan Graziano recently suggested the team could target a third down back with strong pass protection skills, eyeing both trade avenues and waiver claims as rosters trim down. Among potential names, one stands out: Kenneth Walker. Though Seattle retained him through roster cutdowns, their confidence in rising talents like Zach Charbonnet and George Halani could render Walker tradable at the right price. His resume is proven. Over 3 NFL seasons, he has racked up 2,586 rushing yards and 25 touchdowns on 615 carries, alongside 726 receiving yards and 2 more scores. Walker's skill set is complete. Punishing strength between the tackles, blistering breakaway speed, and reliable hands in the passing game. For Kansas City, that versatility would mean more than insurance. It would infuse immediate creativity into the offense. Walker's addition grows more enticing when considering Pacheco's injury history and Rice's absence to open the season. A dual threat back could help stabilize the unit early while providing Mahomes a consistent outlet. Seattle's depth makes the scenario plausible. With Charbonnet surging and other options on the roster, Walker could become expendable if Kansas City offers a strong return. Such a move would transcend mere depth. It would be a declaration of intent, a bold swing to restore offensive balance and arm Mahomes with every weapon required to keep Kansas City atop the AFC hierarchy. So what do you think, Chiefs Kingdom? Would acquiring Kenneth Walker be the bold stroke you'd endorse? Or should Kansas City conserve assets for other reinforcements? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe for daily updates. We'll keep you locked in with everything happening in Kansas City. See you soon. Y'all, it's time for a real talk about what's unfolding in Kansas City. And for fantasy football managers who've been riding the Travis Kelce wave for the past decade, the forecast isn't looking good. Now before you come for me, let me set the record straight. I've got nothing but admiration for what Kelce has accomplished. We're talking about a future Hall of Famer, a generational phenom who's been the gold standard for tight ends in fantasy football since the Obama administration. But the NFL is a young man's arena, and Father Time remains the one opponent no legend can outrun. Let's read the writing on the wall. Last season should have sent shockwaves through the fantasy football world. But somehow, too many are still asleep. Kelce, at 35, wrapped up the season as TE5 with 97 receptions, 823 yards, and just 3 touchdowns. Now I get it. Those numbers aren't bad. In fact, for 95% of the league's tight ends, that stat line would be career-defining. But Travis, Kelce isn't the 95%. He's the elite of the elite, the benchmark. And when a down year looks like this, it means the decline isn't just coming. It's already here. Here's where things start to unravel. The analytics expose what raw stats try to mask. Kelce's yards per route run, YPRR, dipped to a concerning 1.67, ranking 21st among tight ends. Let that sink in. This is the same guy who used to be Mahomes's automatic read, the security blanket. For context, he posted a 2.01 YPRR in 2023 and a dominant 2.44 in 2022. This isn't a slow fade, it's a cliff dive. And then there's the tape. I've dissected every snap he's played over the last 3 seasons. The drop-off isn't dramatic, it's subtle, but it's real. That first step explosiveness off the line, it's dulled. The effortless separation he once created, now it's manufactured, more dependent on schemes and spacing. Even Pro Football Focus handed him a modest 71.7 grade last season. Good for 13th out of 74 tight ends. Respectable? Sure. But for a man who's owned a top 3 spot for nearly a decade, that's a throne beginning to tremble. Now let me be clear, this isn't a eulogy. Kelce can still ball. He's better than most tight ends in the league. But in the cutthroat world of fantasy football, where production, consistency, and upside reign supreme, his trajectory is trending the wrong way. Let's talk volume. The lifeblood of fantasy, tight ends. Even if a player's physical tools are eroding, heavy target share can disguise it. The issue? That monopoly Kelce enjoyed in Kansas City is fading, and it's not his fault. Last season, the Chiefs' receiving core was in shambles. Injuries left Kelce as Mahomes' lone trusted target. In a twisted way, that boosted his fantasy stock, even during a statistical downturn. He was the emergency valve, the fallback, the dependable presence in a collapsing structure. But when Rashee Rice was healthy and active, we got a sobering preview of what's to come. In the 3 full games Rice played start to finish, Kelce's production crumbled. 8 catches, 69 yards, 0 touchdowns on 12 targets. Yes, it's a small sample, but extrapolate that over 17 games, and you're looking at just 45 catches for 391 yards. Numbers that wouldn't even crack the top 15 tight ends. That's a crisis for fantasy managers banking on vintage Kelce. And here's the real pivot point: the Rashee Rice effect. Initially, the fantasy community clung to hopes that Rice might face a suspension in 2025, a potential saving grace for Kelce's target dominance. But the latest buzz suggests Rice will likely be active from week 1, siphoning targets Kelce used to feast on. Thank you guys, see you next video.